What was the biggest difference you felt moving from being a player to becoming a manager? How did the concept of total football evolve throughout your coaching career?
As a player, my responsibility ended when I stepped off the pitch. My job was to perform, help the team, and focus on my own role. As a manager, everything became my responsibility, from tactics and training sessions to player development and team mentality. I had to think not only about winning the next match, but also about building a long-term identity for the club. The challenge was much bigger, but it was also more rewarding because I could influence how an entire team played and thought about football.
You implemented your philosophy at both Ajax and Barcelona. What were the key differences between the two?
The core idea of total football never changed. It was always about movement, intelligence, and creating space. However, as football evolved, I had to adapt the details to suit different generations of players and new tactical challenges. My goal was never to copy the past, but to keep improving the philosophy. The principles remained the same, but the way they were applied became more refined. Football is constantly changing, and a coach must evolve without losing the essence of what makes the system successful.
What does a perfect football team look like to you?
Ajax and Barcelona were similar in their appreciation for attacking football, but the situations were very different. At Ajax, many of the principles I believed in were already part of the club's culture. At Barcelona, I had to help create that culture and convince people to embrace a new football identity. It required patience and belief. Once the players understood the vision, everything started to come together. Building something from the ground up at Barcelona was one of the most satisfying experiences of my career.
Why is possession-based football such a central part of your system?
A perfect football team is not simply a collection of great players. It is a team where everyone understands their role and works together as one unit. The players must be technically strong, tactically intelligent, and willing to make sacrifices for each other. They should know how to create space, control possession, and react quickly when they lose the ball. Most importantly, they should make football look simple because they understand the game so well. That, for me, is the closest thing to perfection.
How do you teach young players positional intelligence?
Possession is important because it allows a team to control the game. If you have the ball, the opponent cannot attack, and you can decide the tempo of the match. However, possession is not about passing for the sake of passing. It must have a purpose. The goal is to create space, move the opposition out of position, and generate opportunities. When a team controls possession properly, it gains confidence and forces opponents to spend most of their energy defending.
Why was training goalkeepers to play with their feet such an important part of your philosophy?
I always encouraged young players to think before they acted. Positional intelligence is about understanding where to be, when to move, and how to use space effectively. A player with great intelligence can often outperform a physically stronger opponent. I would constantly ask players to observe the game around them and anticipate what might happen next. The best footballers are not always the fastest or strongest. They are often the ones who understand the game better than everyone else on the pitch.
Barcelona Dream Team era. How did the idea for Barcelona's Dream Team first come about?
I believe the goalkeeper should be much more than someone who stops shots. In my view, the goalkeeper is the first attacker. If they can play confidently with their feet, the team gains an extra player in possession. This helps create better passing options and allows the team to build attacks from the back. At the time, some people thought this idea was unusual, but modern football has shown how important it is. Today, almost every top goalkeeper is expected to contribute in possession.
How does it feel seeing player-turned-coaches like Pep Guardiola carry your ideas forward?
The Dream Team was created through a clear vision rather than a single moment. I wanted Barcelona to play exciting football while competing for the biggest trophies. We focused on signing and developing players who were technically gifted, intelligent, and comfortable in possession. Over time, the squad developed a unique understanding of how we wanted to play. The chemistry between the players became stronger with each season, and eventually, that group achieved something truly special for the club and its supporters.
What was your vision behind building up La Masia Academy?
It gives me a great sense of pride. Football is always evolving, and every generation should build upon the ideas of the previous one. Seeing coaches like Pep Guardiola take those concepts and adapt them to modern football shows that the philosophy continues to have value. What makes me happiest is not that people copy the ideas exactly, but that they understand the principles behind them and find new ways to apply them. That is how football continues to grow and improve.
Where do you see your philosophy having the biggest impact on modern football?
My vision for La Masia was simple. Create players who understood the club's football identity from a young age. I wanted young footballers to learn the same principles that the first team followed, so that the transition would feel natural. Instead of depending entirely on transfers, Barcelona could develop its own talent. This approach not only produced excellent players, but also created a strong connection between the academy and the first team. It became one of the club's greatest strengths.
Today's top managers do you see reflecting your style the most?
I believe the biggest impact has been on how teams think about possession, positioning, and youth development. Many modern clubs focus on controlling games through intelligent movement and technical quality, rather than relying purely on physical strength. The idea that young players should be taught how to think about football, rather than simply how to play it, has also become much more common. Seeing these principles influence teams around the world is something that makes me very proud.
What do you want to be remembered for as a coach?
Pep Guardiola is probably the most obvious example, because his teams share many of the same principles I valued throughout my career. They focus on possession, positional play, and controlling matches through intelligence rather than chaos. However, football has evolved, and many other coaches have also incorporated elements of these ideas into their own systems. What matters most is not who copies a style, but who understands the reasons behind it and adapts it successfully.
What was the toughest decision you had to make during your coaching career?
To modern football. I would like to be remembered as someone who changed the way people thought about football. Winning trophies is important, but trophies eventually become part of history. Ideas can influence generations. If coaches, players, and supporters continue discussing concepts such as positional play, youth development, and attacking football, then I feel I have contributed something meaningful to the sport. My greatest achievement would be knowing that my philosophy helped shape the future of football beyond my own lifetime.
Was there ever a moment you had to compromise on your philosophy?
The toughest decisions were usually the ones involving people rather than tactics. Leaving out talented players, making difficult selections, or moving on from individuals who had contributed to the team was never easy. As a coach, you must sometimes make choices that are unpopular because your responsibility is to the team as a whole. Those moments can be emotionally difficult, but leadership requires the courage to make decisions that serve the long-term success of the club.
What happened? How challenging was it to fit new players into your system?
There were situations where I had to make adjustments, but I never wanted to compromise on my core beliefs. Football requires flexibility because every opponent and every squad is different. However, adapting is not the same as abandoning your philosophy. I always believed that a team must have a clear identity. You can change formations, tactics, or player roles, but the fundamental principles should remain consistent. Without a strong identity, it becomes very difficult to build lasting success.
Personal insights.
It was often challenging because my system demanded a high level of understanding and intelligence. New players had to learn not only their own responsibilities, but also how their role connected to the entire team. Some adapted very quickly because the style suited their natural qualities. Others needed more time and guidance. The key was patience and communication. Once players understood the reasoning behind the system, they usually became more comfortable and effective within it.
Between being a player and a manager, which role gave you more satisfaction and why?
Both roles brought different kinds of satisfaction. As a player, I loved the excitement of competing, winning matches, and expressing myself on the field. As a manager, I enjoyed building something bigger than myself. Coaching allowed me to develop players, create a football identity, and influence the game in a deeper way. While playing gave me unforgettable memories, Coaching provided a lasting sense of achievement because the impact extended far beyond my own performances.
What advice would you give a young coach taking charge of their first team?
My advice would be to develop a clear vision and stay committed to it. Young coaches often feel pressure to change their ideas after every result, but consistency is important. Players need to understand what their coach believes in and what is expected of them. Communication, patience, and continuous learning are essential. A coach should never stop studying the game because football is always evolving. The best coaches are the ones who remain open to learning throughout their careers.
What's the moment from your career you're proudest of?
One of the moments I am proudest of is winning Barcelona's first European Cup in 1992. It was more than just a trophy. It represented years of hard work, belief, and commitment to a football philosophy that many people doubted. That victory showed that our ideas could succeed at the highest level. More importantly, it helped establish a football identity that continued to influence the club long after that team
If you started coaching again today, what would you do differently?
stopped playing together. If I started coaching again today, I would definitely use modern technology and data analysis more than I could during my time. Coaches now have access to detailed information about player performance, fitness, and tactics, which can help improve decision-making and preparation. That said, I would not change the core of my philosophy. I would still believe in attacking football, possession, creativity, and giving young players opportunities to develop. The tools may change, but the principles of great football remain the same.